Thank you for that, Sammy. It's just wonderful. I mean, I came up with the idea and I promoted it, but I never believed it was going to happen every week on the streets of Glasgow. I really didn't. And it is just phenomenal. I was there yesterday. I even learned how to pronounce it. I'm told it's Buchanan Street. It's not quite what I was saying, but it is just phenomenal. So I'm delighted to be here because I find that Scottish people, once they get their teeth into something, they really make it happen. And I think you're a great example of that. So I just want to do a brief couple of points as to the film we're going to show you. Why did I make it? And raise with you the point that I would like to pick up after the film when we've seen it. So why did I do it? Well, I'm not a filmmaker, though, you know, when you're retired you can put your hand to anything, sort of. Or at least you tend to think so, and then you realise you can't when you make a hash of it. But I wanted to record and to honour what had been achieved up here in Scotland, and also what the challenges were that you were facing, because although this stuff is happening all the way around the UK, to some extent it's stronger and harder up here in Scotland, and we need to know what's happening, even if we feel really comfortable up in London. We need to know. And I also wanted to encourage others to pick up on your example, because what you're doing is just fantastic. And other people have picked up on it, but no one's as good as you, so I want them to pick up on that too. And then I wanted to take us on to say, well, where do we go next? I was actually hatching some ideas with Hadar over lunch, so that might be something that we do next. But some of you may notice I'm wearing a badge, where it says, if you can read it, probably can't from way back, I am a Zionist, do ask. And that's because I want to start to decontaminate the word Zionism and decontaminate the word Israel. So I'll talk a little bit more about that after we've seen the film, but now I hope you enjoy what's quite a short film, but I hope it helps explain. This film shows the hatred and intimidation faced by Israelis in Scotland since 2010, and the response by those who support Israel. Pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian, pro-peace promotes education, dialogue and coexistence. We have brought this film together to show the issues that need tackling. We start with the experience of an Israeli Bedouin diplomat.
Ismail Khaldi was welcomed by the Arab TV station Al Jazeera in 2010. His reception in Scotland a year later was very different. Invited by the University Jewish Society, this is what happened. But that chant, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, implies the destruction of Israel, the only democratic country in the Middle East, and the only Jewish state in the world, one that gives full rights to minorities such as Bedouins like Ismail Khaldi.
Before I understood what was going on, I understood they wanted to, shut me down.
It wasn't just an Israeli Bedouin diplomat which the haters wanted to shut down. In 2012, pro-Palestinian demonstrators managed to bring to a halt the performance of the Israeli-backed Shiva dance troupe on 3 separate evenings during the Edinburgh Festival. They unfurled placards and Palestinian flags and began hurling abuse at the performers. The Telegraph described them as running amok. Then, in 2014, Israeli theatre company Incubator were prevented from performing at their booked venue at the Edinburgh Festival. They then performed a silent protest show in the street outside, and that too was disrupted. The haters were targeting anything Israeli, and they were being allowed to get away with their bullying tactics, singling out the only Jewish majority in the world. Edmund Burke said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. Sometimes it takes just one person to make things happen." That person was Nigel Goodrich. He was appalled by an Israeli haters event in his hometown of Dumfries in 2013. was a groundbreaking event for him and the start of activating those who wished to stand with Israel in Scotland. In 2014, he collected money to buy products from the Israeli cosmetic shop in Glasgow, which was under attack from the haters, the Scottish-Palestinian Solidarity Campaign. Sadly, the haters were able to proudly boast that Israeli Jericho Cosmetics were kicked out of Glasgow Mall today and Israeli Kedem kicked out the week before. 2 years later, 2 of the protesters were convicted of aggravated trespass, but that was too late to help the businesses targeted by their hate.
In February 2016, a unique event took place, a motion debated in Holyrood. This House supports cultural bridges, not boycotts, with a COFIS demonstration outside and a huge pro-Israel presence, including diplomats from the Israeli embassy and representatives from COFIS from all over Scotland in the public gallery during the debate. With the result, the debate was resoundingly won.
Glasgow Friends of Israel had their inaugural conference in May 2015, and one of the workshops was by Judy Weleminsky, whose organization is pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian, pro-peace. And she wanted to talk to people about street advocacy. And I went along and listened to what Judy had to say and was so inspired that I thought, that's it. So we're going to have a street stall on Buchanan Street, and mostly it's Palestinian stalls that are there. In fact, there's 3 roundabouts where we are.
Unlike all the other stalls in the street, we have both Israeli flag and Palestinian flag on our stall. And people walk by and they don't understand how you can have 2 flags on one stall. So they come and inquire about it. Some of them actually think we're a Palestinian stall. So we explained to them the reason we have the 2 flags is because we are advocating for peace, and if you're going to have peace, it can only be for 2 people. You cannot have peace for one side, and therefore we are supposed to have both sides.
Shalom means peace, and the festival brought Israelis of all kinds together for an exhibition and gala event celebrating Israeli culture and diversity. But the haters tried to block us from holding the festival and then mounted a hate-filled protest outside our venue.
We were invited to the Shalom Festival to present the film, The Forgotten Refugees. It's about the 850,000 Jewish refugees from Arab countries who were ethnically cleansed. Just as we put on the film, the demonstrators started using a megaphone and started drowning out the sound of the film with their slogans. And they were shouting, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." And in no uncertain terms, they were saying, we want to ethnically cleanse Israel of every last Jew. So the irony of it all was, we were showing a film about the ethnic cleansing of Jews from the Arab Middle East, and they were saying they wanted to finish the job.
So this year, we have worked very hard with the police to explain to them how it is that what people say and what they wave can actually cause alarm. That phrases like, "From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free," are not just political statements. It's another way of saying we want this country, this area, to be free of Jews. Now, our Shalom Festival has the exact opposite message. So this year what we did, we extended our event to 3 days, because we wanted to bring over more people from Israel and to make better use of their time. So we brought over Israelis who are Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, and Bedouin, and Druze, and Baha'i, but we also brought over Palestinians, because all of them together, through their message, through their life, through their friendships, through their art, want to share a message that there has to be a planned and a shared future. We believe this message is such a positive one that it is unboycottable by any sane and sensible person. Lo and behold, we've only had a few protesters outside the second Shalom Festival, and their protest amounted to writing offensive words in chalk on the pavement. One reason why we have had such a smaller protest is that we've got the support of all three party political leaders in Scotland. They understand what we're about, they are buying into it and showing that they're conscious of the message that we have, and they are commanded by it as well as being committed to it. Namely, that peaceful coexistence has to be the way forward.
And I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to the wonderful people who are here. Those who want to look for politics, those who want to argue with politics, if they do believe in freedom of speech, they have to respect others. If they want to challenge us in politics, they are different, another place. But I don't believe even they do care for the Palestinians. Because if they would care for the Palestinians really, they would encourage and support dialogue between Palestinians and Israelis.
It's a great addition to the Edinburgh Festival. It brings a different story in a different format.
Israel is a multicultural and a multi-ethnic country. So in order to reflect that, we have brought over Israelis who are Christians, who are Druze, Bedouin, Muslims, Arabs, Ahmadiyya Muslims, and those who identify as Palestinian.
I started doing rockets to Moses after a close encounter with one of the rockets. One of the rockets fell about 50 meters next to me. When I came home, I was restless. I was suffering from trauma. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. But when I came home and saw one of the rockets sitting on the table, I decided to transfer it from darkness into light, from a bad thing into a good thing. So I started to cut all the rockets and made them into sculptures, into flowers.
And the message of Shalom is one I want to leave you with ringing in your ears. It's positive, and it's encouraging, and it's full of hope. And it's this one, that the future belongs to us, those of you, those of us who believe in peace, in Shalom.
I've certainly been in and around the exhibition. I've seen new things, I've learned some new things, and like most events that I get to attend, I've come away with information I didn't know before, so I feel certainly much better for it.
This year, in 2017, despite the protests of the 2016 festival, the International Shalom Festival has grown from a one-day to a three-day event, promoting the marvellously diverse Israeli culture. It addressed the challenges of coexistence and the complexities of modern Israel. 2017 saw the return of many Israeli performers to the Edinburgh Fringe who were able to perform without the public disruption from their performances. Many people in the UK care about Israel and support her right to be treated fairly. In England and Wales, the Public Order Act 1986 prohibits expressions of racial hatred, which is defined as hatred against a group of persons by reason of the group's colour, race, nationality, including citizenship, or ethnic or national origins. Scotland also has legislation against racial hatred. So why are these expressions of hatred against Israel allowed? Why do we allow intimidation in venues preventing Israel acts from performing? Why do we allow intimidation of Israeli businesses? We need politicians, administrations and law enforcers to stand firm against those promoting hate. Action is needed to ensure that Israelis who want to share their culture, their innovations and their businesses are free from racist harassment, bullying and intimidation anywhere in the UK. to look back on that because it's now more than a year ago that the second Shalom Festival happened. I don't know whether there will be any more in the future. The first two were amazing. Will there be the energy for them? Is the Edinburgh Fringe now open for business, for Israeli business? I don't know, but I know that you are going to keep a careful watch on all of that. So towards the end, I'm asking the question, what about this definition of racism, which says that includes nationality? Because so much of the hate that's directed on our streets is directed towards Israel and Israelis, and that is by virtue of nationality. There's been a lot of attention recently to anti-Semitism in the Labour Party and elsewhere, and the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition is much used, and it includes saying that it is racist to hold Israel to double standards. But I think it would be quite interesting to consider if we start moving on from this focus on anti-Semitism. By the way, I don't like the word. It was a word coined by somebody who was an anti-Semite. And it gets confused also with the issue of whether Palestinians are also Semites. So it's a very strange word because it's referring only to a language issue. For my part, I'm putting forward the term anti-Jewism. I just think it's more explicable. But what if we replace the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition with the word Israel instead of Jew? So it would read something like this. A certain perception of Israelis, which may be expressed as hatred towards Israelis, rhetorical and physical manifestations of acts directed to Israelis and to non-Israelis who seem to be Israelis, to their individuals or their property, the Israeli community, its institutions, religious facilities and activities. Is there anything wrong with that definition? Maybe one can improve it. But if we start to raise that as an issue, we can start to say, why is it right to express hatred of Israelis? Why should people look in amazement at a badge which says, I'm a Zionist? Do ask. A number of people have said to me, wouldn't you be afraid to wear that out in the public domain? Well, I sometimes wear this on the tube in London. But of course, you all know what the tube in London is like. Nobody looks at anything. But actually, most people are amused by it. And many people do want to ask because people don't really understand. They've just heard that it's a hate word. So I'm wondering what we can do next. I think the speakers this morning have raised so many interesting issues and ideas. What we can do next to detoxify the term Zionism, detoxify the concept of Israel, and get out there and get the British public on our side. So that's a challenge I'd want to put out to you. We can discuss it. I don't have any easy answers, but I think that if we start to be proud to be Zios, proud to be Zionists, proud to be pro-Israel, out there in the public domain, not just among friends, I think we can start to make a difference. So that's a challenge I'd like to throw open to you with any of your ideas and suggestions and any questions you may have.
So we do the Q&A, Judy?
Huh?
We do the questions at the Q&A?
Okay, we can do, yeah. How are we doing for timing? Do you want me to carry on? Or?
Just for another 5 minutes.
Okay, for another 5 minutes. So those, you can work out your questions, although there is somebody at the back who wants to ask a question. Is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
I think there's a microphone here. Might be a great idea to use.
You have to come down. Come down to the front.
Down.
There's a microphone you can use. Don't be shy.
While she's coming down, just to say, my hope with that film was we could get it out and show it in lots of places. You've had a great response to it. I've had a great response when I've shown it, but I'd love to see it be shown in other places to encourage other people to do more.
Thank you. My name's Carol. I'd just like to thank you for the movie and the film. It was really interesting. I'd never been to the Shalom Festival before, and I'm sitting here going, I'm really motivated now, and I do hope it will happen again. I had assumed it would be an annual thing and that I would get to go next summer, so I'm really hoping it's going to happen again. And the question I'd like to ask is about the statement you made at the end there, the creed, whatever you want to call it, and about anti-Israelis. And I'm wondering how inclusive that definition is of Jews. Do all Jews necessarily self-define or self-identify as Israelis? Are there Jews who would not identify as Israelis? I'm coming from a place of radiant ignorance here, so talk slowly. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I'm glad that the film has helped, because these things can go down in history and get forgotten about. And I do hope there is another Shalom Festival, maybe one next time, where we don't need to be away from all the main people, and we can be just one of the venues without any special security, where just Israel and its culture and its people can show off what they have to show for the festival, get appreciated, and not be in fear. And surely that should be a reasonable aim. Why shouldn't it be a reasonable aim when every other culture and country can do that at the Edinburgh Festival? The Edinburgh Festival should be ashamed if that's not the case. So maybe that's something that we really need to push on. So the question is it problematic to say you're an Israeli? Did I understand you correctly? Because I couldn't properly.
Yes, it was just, is it a narrow definition of what it means to be Jewish?
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a narrow definition. The definition of a Jew isn't a narrow definition, because it includes not only people who are Jewish, but people who think are Jewish, or people who identify as Jewish. So these aren't narrow definitions. I think they can be broad definitions, and I think any of us who support Israel, we are like Israelis. We're Israelis abroad, standing up for Israel, even if we haven't got the citizenship yet. So I think it can be a broad definition, and we can stand side by side with Israelis who really have to fight the bombs and the burning tyres and the fires in the fields themselves every day. Okay, so I just want to say one last thing. I was really pleased to be on the Glasgow store yesterday. It was just so fantastic. And I noticed you've got quite a lot of haters around. There were 3 or 4 particularly who were on the wall opposite, and I'm told that they're from Fight Racism, Fight Imperialism, which is the name of the newspaper of the Revolutionary Communist Group, apparently. So it's quite interesting to look them up and see what they're really all about. But they really want to bring down capitalism, and they're really about hate. But they're using Israel as the touch paper, because they've got a lot of other things that they're against, and the things that they're for, like Stalinism, which seems weird. But we need to start exposing what these people are all about, because there are so many people jumping on the bandwagon, because Israel is that common hate term that everybody can galvanise around, and I think that's why it's being used by such a wide variety of people, most of whom are not Palestinian. And interestingly enough, I don't know if you've noticed, but we've now got an MP at Westminster who's part Palestinian. And she is very careful, Leila Moran, very careful not to identify with the Palestinian cause, because she just wants to get on and be a good MP, and not to get involved in the complexity of these issues. So it's interesting that most of the people who are making aggro about this are not actually Palestinians. They have other agendas. And I think we need to start to expose some of these other agendas that people have, and stop letting them get away with just climbing on what seems to be a great bandwagon.